Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Mandatory minicamp continues out in Berea, and the Browns back out on the practice field getting work in. That means Deshaun Watson back at it, throwing the football around, and again, looking pretty good. Here he finds Jalen Darden underneath, hits him in stride. Watson this time going for the tight end, and Njoku, little back shoulder throw. He caught it. Here, Marquise Goodwin, and these two continue to develop a little bit of chemistry. Nice adjustment there by Goodwin. Short pass to Nick Chubb. Figures to be more involved in the passing game this year with Kareem Hunt gone. And you will see some of this as Deshaun Watson with a little designed run on that zone read. Again, Watson looking good out in mandatory minicamp. He's supposed to. They're not in pads or any of that, but you would rather he look good and confident, and he certainly has. Watson talked about where he's at this year as compared to a season ago.
I'm pretty far ahead of where I was last year. Last year was, as far as football, being on the field, just learning a new system, trying to adapt to, different teammates, different players, how guys run routes, how Kevin calls the plays. And just being able to, process the game at the speed I know. And being a year in and being able to talk to Kevin and AVP about what we want to do and being confident about it, it allows me to play a little bit faster when I'm on the field.
We just talked to David Njoku, and he said it seems like every football you throw is just right spot on the money. Just how much fun are you having out there, and how good do you feel?
I feel really good. Like I said before, the biggest thing is just the confidence level. Just knowing who I am, trusting what I do, trusting the work that I put in, these past couple years, to get back to this position that I'm in and have the opportunities to go out there and try to, win some games and do it with the guys that we have on the field. So I'm enjoying myself. I'm having fun, and just keep stacking the days.
With that, let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dawgs podcast, as well as Network 216. And Tyler, again, they're supposed to be doing that at this stage, but it's still really good to see. What about just what you have seen from Watson?
So some things that I've noticed from Deshaun Watson, he just looks a lot more comfortable. And I know that there's no real pass rush right now. You're in minicamp. You're not tackling. There's none of that going on. A lot of it's 7-on-7. But he has looked a lot more comfortable. He is making quicker decisions with the football. But also, if you watch carefully in some of the video clips that have been posted from minicamp, he's also going through his progressions. And he's doing that very quickly. You can also just see some new wrinkles in the offense, too. He looks a lot more comfortable in the offense itself. He's making quicker decisions. But also, it looks like he's already built a strong chemistry with Elijah Moore. Mari Cooper's coming back to minicamp after missing pretty much the offseason, recovering from his offseason surgery. Already has really good chemistry. Marquise Goodwin, who I think could end up being a steal for the Browns if he can somehow stay healthy. But overall, you can see that confidence that he has in himself and in his abilities, because now, Dave, he gets to focus on specifically just football. Last offseason, regardless of your opinion on Deshaun Watson, he's going through a lot. Any player dealing with everything that he dealt with last offseason, that's always going to be in the back of your mind. But now he gets to just go out and play football. And I think that's a big thing, is being able to clear your mind, being able to just focus on the game of football, focusing on being a member of the Cleveland Browns. And I think that's why we're seeing Deshaun Watson really just with all the confidence he has, but also he's starting to get that groove back that you saw when he was with the Houston Texans, that quick decision-making, quick reads, and also just going through his progressions at a very timely rate. Yeah,
he kind of alluded to it. His ability to process what he sees in defenses, it is elite. And we didn't see that last year. And if you think about it, it makes sense. New teammates, new system, a lot of uncertainty, 2 years not playing. When he's at his best, he knows where the ball's going probably as quick as anybody, and we're starting to see that again. I know you kind of alluded to this. How do you think the Browns are going to use Elijah Moore, and what Kevin Stefanski, I think, is just kind of like, we can do this, and we can. It's like a new toy that he has as an offensive coach.
Yeah, Elijah Moore is going to be used everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. You're already starting to see a couple clips. If you look carefully, and I saw it yesterday in red zone as well, Elijah Moore was lining up out of the backfield and coming out of the backfield running routes. I think that's huge for the Browns. We talked about how should they add another running back to be that third down back that can be the pass catcher out of the backfield? Well, it looks like they're answering that question, and they're going to use Elijah Moore as that player that allows you to get Marquise Goodwin on the field more, that allows you to get David Bell on the field more, who we saw make a red zone touchdown catch from Watson yesterday. And it also allows Cedric Tillman to possibly see the field a lot more as a rookie. They're going to use Elijah Moore out of the backfield. And it really reminds me, we have to go back a little ways, of Percy Harvin, how he was used as an NFL player. Used it on jet sweeps, used him out of the backfield, but also he's speed. He can make plays in the slot. That's exactly what Elijah Moore really reminds me of. And I think Elijah Moore is going to have a really big year for the Browns. And I think he could end up being Deshaun Watson's favorite target, not necessarily because he's the guy that's going to post the most yards and the most touchdowns, but he's just going to be that reliable pass catcher. And you can already see that chemistry that he's built with Elijah Moore. I mean, the Browns are posting almost every single day a highlight of Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore. So they've already built that chemistry, and I think Elijah Moore is really going to take a huge step forward for the Browns, and he needs to, especially if he does want to earn a contract extension after the 2023 season.
Yeah, the other thing that does is it allows you to understand who's covering them. It gives Watson the ability to see, do I have a favorable matchup with Elijah Moore? And if he does, gets him the ball quickly, and it puts the defense kind of back on its heels a little bit. Deshaun Watson was asked about free agent DeAndre Hopkins, and again, this is him on Hopkins, who is still a free agent.
Really, I have no idea. That's more of a AB or Kevin question, but for me, I have no idea where that stands. But, like I said last week, of course, we would love to have him, and we'll see how things go.
How receptive to your recruitment pitch was he?
Hop is, me and him has always had that relationship, so me and him is locked in. That's my brother. I talked to him yesterday because it was his birthday, but nothing about football, just about life and just how he can just, enjoy his day and, more blessings to him.
And Tom Pelissaro tweets this out. DeAndre Hopkins slated to fly to Nashville on Sunday for a visit with the Titans. Per sources, Hop and Vrabel together in Houston. Now Vrabel's team gets the first visit with Hopkins, five-time Pro Bowl pick released by Arizona last month. Again, Tyler, it's the beginning of his visits, so nothing to get crazy about. League sources have told me the relationship between Hopkins and Watson is every bit as strong as Deshaun Watson just said it was. So that is in the Browns' favor.
Yeah, that's a big reason I think that the Browns are even interested in DeAndre Hopkins, because normally when you have a receiver that's on the back end of 30 in his career, it doesn't seem like a move the Browns would make. But again, Deshaun Watson has that chemistry with DeAndre Hopkins. It sounds like from what Watson has said that DeAndre Hopkins would like to play for the Browns. I think, and we've seen a lot of reports on it, is that money going to work? Visiting the Titans can offer more money than what the Browns can, and they have a huge need for DeAndre Hopkins because right now they only have really Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and Kyle Phillips as their wide receivers. So they need a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. I think the Browns are going to end up getting a visit from Hopkins at some point. I really do. If he's going on a free agent visit tour, I think he'll end up visiting the Browns. That's going to be a pretty fun day on social media for sure. But ultimately it comes down to, I think, Dave, is DeAndre Hopkins willing to take a little bit less to reunite with Deshaun Watson, or is he going to go where he ends up getting the most money, kind of like what Odell Beckham Jr. did and ending up with the Baltimore Ravens? That's really the question with this, because DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that a lot of NFL teams could use. Some will say that he's past his prime, and that might be somewhat true. I don't think he's the all-pro dominant wide receiver he used to be, but he's still a very valuable contributor to a team that is trying to play in the NFL playoffs first and foremost, but also potentially chase the Super Bowl. So he would be a great fit for the Browns. But again, is he willing to take less to join Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, or does he want that money from the Tennessee Titans, possibly the Detroit Lions, the New England Patriots, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out really soon on that. But again, it would make a lot of sense for DeAndre Hopkins to come to Cleveland. But then that almost makes you wonder who's the odd man out in that wide receiver room if Hopkins comes in, because that's going to take reps away from somebody in the Browns offense.
Yeah, and again, I never question somebody chasing money, because your career as a professional athlete is very finite. So if he feels like he needs more money, he should go and try to get more money. This is kind of interesting as well. So Nick Chubb was constantly told the story that John Dorsey sent tape of him to Jim Brown to evaluate him when John Dorsey was considering drafting him. Jim Brown loved what he saw on tape of Nick Chubb. Chubb didn't believe it until it was kind of reconfirmed by John Dorsey after Jim Brown passed that, yeah, that was legitimate. So this is what Nick Chubb had to say about Jim Brown and him kind of taking a liking to Chubb's game.
He saw something in me, and yeah, it's special, We're definitely playing for him from here on out.
What were your interactions with him like? I mean, did you get a chance to talk to him about just running and just the physical nature of how he did his job? Did you have those conversations with him?
We didn't really add too much in detail. I think the biggest part was just talking to him in general, just learning from life about him, and him just being here, being around. That's more than anything you can ask for.
What's the most impactful thing that you took away from those conversations with him?
The most impactful thing is probably just, stand for what you believe in. He was a strong man. He stood for a lot of things, and he was himself. I think that's just a big thing to take from it. Just always be true to yourself.
And again, Tyler, kind of interesting, he did say at the beginning he's playing for Jim Brown.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I know we're all waiting to see how the Browns are going to go about honoring Jim Brown, not only this season, but really just overall. I think we all want to see that. But it's awesome to see that Nick Chubb and Jim Brown had that type of relationship. And it's cool when you get to hear stories like that. A lot of times we don't get to hear that. I know that it sounds like Jim Brown's son is also interning with the Browns this summer, which is really cool. But I can't wait to see how they end up honoring the best player in Cleveland Browns history. It's going to be fun. And I love what Joel Bitonio said. He was asked the best way to honor Jim Brown, and he said, win football games. I agree. Let's go to the Super Bowl in honor of Jim Brown. Let's actually win a Super Bowl in honor of Jim Brown, because that would be fantastic and a storybook ending for sure.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast Network, 216 and I. Going to step aside, take a quick time out. To other side of the break, we'll hear from some of the Browns' defensive players. Rodney McLeod, Dalvin Tomlinson, straight ahead. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast, as well as Network 216. Safety Rodney McLeod talked about why he signed with the Browns, as well as playing for Jim Schwartz, a guy who he has played with as a defensive coordinator before.
Team, great deal of talent here. Felt like have a lot of guys that can contribute to bringing a winning culture. Of course, Jim Schwartz as well, being with him in Philly, understanding like the defense and knowing what type of man he is and coach, that also helped. And Andrew Berry as well. So excited to be here, man. So, like I said, it's a great deal of talent. Brings the best out of you each and every day. So looking forward to continue to build with these guys and hopefully be able to have a successful season this year.
So when you were with Jim, obviously, winning that Super Bowl there, just tell us a little bit about what makes him so good, what it was that kind of drew you back to him.
Really his passion, his energy each and every day, holding everybody accountable, demands the most out of you. He holds everybody to a very high standard, and that's what you need in this business to win. And so I think he's already established that here, and you could tell he's a culture shifter. And so I feel like that's what's needed. Like I said, he's going to demand excellence, and just an amazing guy.
And Tyler, again, that's a guy that's played for him before, knows exactly what this defense is supposed to look like when it's playing at a high level.
Absolutely. Rodney McLeod is an addition to this Browns defense, not only defense, but overall locker room that I think is going to be one of the steals for Andrew Berry this offseason, getting him on a very cheap one-year contract. You're bringing in someone that has that type of experience with Jim Schwartz, knows what he is like as a defensive coordinator, but also as a coach. I think that's very important. But also, I think Rodney McLeod brings a leadership aspect coming from a Super Bowl winning team like the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think he's a great addition. I love what he's already brought to the defense. We've already seen him make a couple plays just from videos from OTAs and minicamp. I can't wait to see how Schwartz ends up lining all of them up with Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Rodney McLeod, because I think he's going to mix up everyone, not only on the defensive line, but already in the secondary. We've already heard Denzel Ward talk about it as he's been playing some in the slot. We've seen Grant Delpit playing some in the slot. So Jim Schwartz is going to move everybody around. And I really want to see Rodney McLeod get on the field a lot this year because I think he's going to be a very solid contributor for the Browns. But again, it's not only what he's going to bring on the field, it's also what he's already bringing off the field. That's leadership, that's experience, and it's having that relationship with Jim Schwartz. And I think that's going to really help the Browns this season.
So Browns added some defensive line talent, if you will. Dalvin Tomlinson, one of the guys they signed as a free agent, talked about adding Zadarius Smith, who was his teammate in Minnesota.
Super excited. Used to joke about I'd be joking with him. I'm like, he was gonna miss me that much. He had to come follow me out here. So super excited to have Z back out here with me.
And how do you feel about him kind of joining you occasionally on some of those inside snaps so far these 2 days?
It's gonna be super exciting. I guess because it's some of the similar stuff we ran last year in Minnesota together with me and him running games and stuff together, and it's like the chemistry's already there between me and him.
And Tyler, he touches on it at the end. It's hugely important. They understand how to play off of each other. And in Jim Schwartz's system, he's going to be looking every week. There's going to be, okay, this is a matchup we want. And when he gets it, he's going to keep going to it.
Yeah, and I think it's very important when you're able to bring in players that have played with one another before, kind of like Dalvin Tomlinson mentions. I just think that's really a big deal. And I think that's also why some of us were expecting the Browns to add maybe a defensive lineman that played for Jim Schwartz with the Eagles, like a Fletcher Cox, or I know they did pursue Javon Hargrave, but pursuing someone like that already has is very familiar with the scheme they're running. But also having Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith already playing together, that's going to be really huge for the Browns because they already have a chemistry together. And very important, especially when you're bringing in two new guys to a different team. They already know how to play with one another. Now you just have to get the rest of the defensive line to really just get used to one another. So that's huge that they have that chemistry. But if you look at it too, it was pretty cool. I believe in 11-on-11 yesterday, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Smith, Ogbo was out there, and Myles Garrett. So already Jim Schwartz is using those three defensive linemen, that NASCAR package that we've been talking about, and he's putting Zadarius Smith next to Dalvin Tomlinson. So there's a lot of possibilities that we've talked about that Jim Schwartz is going to be able to implement this season. We're already starting to see it throughout camp, but there's a long way to go. But anytime you have former teammates that have played with one another, it's only going to help your defense and other guys on the defense get used to the new system that the defensive coordinator is putting in place.
All right, this is from the Bleacher Report, NFL players who will not live up to the hype. And they say the aforementioned Zadarius Smith. While there didn't seem to be many lingering ill effects from the back element last year, almost all of his production came in the first half of the year. Despite seeing consistent usage throughout the campaign, he fell off hard over the last 7 games, recording just half sack in that span. And again, you know, we've already heard from Smith about that. He was banged up, had to keep playing because that was contractually the way he was going to make the money. The other thing is they're going to use all of these guys there's going to be a heavy rotation, which will keep guys that are banged up healthier.
Yeah, and the Vikings use Zadarius Smith a lot more, again, inside than they did outside. So his numbers are going to be affected. But also, again, it's an injury. And he played through that injury because he even talked about it. He wanted to earn that paycheck, the bonus that he was going to receive for playing so many games. So you know what? He earned that paycheck. I'm not really worried about Zadarius Smith. I think he's going to be a great fit next to Myles Garrett. And kind of like you talked about, Dave, the Browns have depth now at defensive end. You have Ogbo Okoronkwo, you have Isaiah McGuire, you have Alex Wright, who I think we're already starting to see Jim Schwartz is going to slide him inside as well and also play him outside. So you have that. You also have Lonnie Phelps, the undrafted free agent out of Kansas. You have Isaiah Thomas. Obviously, not all of those guys are probably going to be on the active roster, but it shows that the Browns finally have depth at the defensive end position. And again, Zadarius Smith is an older player, but at the same time, he's still been one of the most productive defensive ends in the NFL the last 3 to 4 seasons. So I'm not worried about him living up to the hype. I think he's going to live up to that hype. And like you talked about, I mean, when you're used as a 3-4 and you're used to being a 4-3 and you still had 10 sacks, imagine what he can do as a 4-3 end next to Myles Garrett, who is, I believe, the best defensive end in the NFL, and a lot of others would believe that as well.
All right. Let's take a look at the new look defense and some of the guys you think that have kind of stood out along that line.
Yeah, so the first guy to me, a little bit of an underrated signing, it's going to come down to with health with him, and that is Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle that they signed. He's been with the 49ers. He's been with the Raiders. He is a very underrated player, and he could start next to Dalvin Tomlinson. I don't know if the Browns will do that just because, again, he has struggled with injury, but the talent is there. You're seeing a lot of reports come out that he is being used a lot by Jim Schwartz, and even in some cases starting next to Dalvin Tomlinson when they are going through team drills. And I think that shows that they really believe in Maurice Hurst. So far, Maurice Hurst has been healthy. I know they have not put on pads yet, but that's still a good sign that he's able to show up to these workouts right now with no injury, playing at 100%. That's really good to see. So really intrigued with Maurice Hurst, because if you can get Maurice Hurst healthy for even the majority of the season, I mean, I'm talking like 12, 14 games, because it's hard for a lot of these guys to play full 17-game season. If you get Maurice Hurst for that long, I think he's going to be a very valuable contributor for the Browns. And keep in mind, he was a very cheap addition by Andrew Berry. And also, I just love what Juan Thornhill is bringing to this team. He has that swagger to him that I really think the Browns could use on that defensive side of the ball. He brings some of that leadership, being a 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Chiefs. I love that he's embracing the city of Cleveland. He seems really engaged, not only like with the fan base, but also his teammates. You can see that. It just seems like a really well tight-knit group on defense. You're seeing Denzel Ward. You're seeing some of these guys speak out, talk about what they're loving about the scheme, how Jim Schwartz is making things simpler for all of his players. It sounds like last year, the reason there's a lot of miscommunication is that things were complex. You saw a bunch of players when they were blowing coverages looking confused. Like, wait, was that supposed to be my assignment? Was that your assignment? Jim Schwartz is making everything simpler for these guys. And I think that's really important to see. One final guy that has really stood out to me so far that seems to be making a lot of plays, I would say that is also Greg Newsome's looked pretty good so far to start. And I think that's good because people are worried, does he want to play is he willing to play the slot? Is he not? But Greg Newsome's talked about that he's not basically being used as a linebacker anymore. He's actually being able to play outside as a corner and as a slot corner, and he is willing to come up and tackle. So just some of the guys that have stood out so far, but you can already see that new scheme that players are warming up to because it's a lot simpler for them to follow and it's a lot easier to communicate. And I think also bringing in Rodney McLeod is going to help with that because like we talked about, Rodney McLeod has that experience in Jim Schwartz's system that the team is going to be running this year.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dawgs Podcast Network, 216 and I. Going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue talking Browns. We'll hear more from Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Deshaun Watson met with media today, talked about what this offense will look like and how different it will be this year.
Everything's new.
Really?
Everything's new.
Deshaun, how much do you appreciate maybe the versatility and the diversity within the receiving group that the Browns have put together this year during this offseason?
It's awesome. I mean, AB and Kevin, AVP, those guys have done a great job of getting all the guys that's in that the receiver room, and they, being able to do everything, playing different positions, playing outside, inside. Everyone can do everything. So you never know going into a game plan or a situation what personnel we have in and what we can do out that personnel grouping. So it's awesome. I would just say just the foundation and the structure of the offense is the same, but as we build and continue to get ready for the season, everything else is new. So,
how different do you think it'll look stylistically and schematically when you get to it?
I'm not sure because Kevin is always involving him and AVP. They're always working out and watching tape and trying to do different things and how we can scheme different teams and different, defensive schemes. So it's kind of hard to really explain that, but all this stuff gets out on social media, so I can't speak too much on all that.
And Tyler, it's just kind of interesting because there's a lot of weapons, and they're trying to find a way to use them all.
Yeah, I think like Deshaun Watson talked about, we've already kind of seen, and again, you can't really judge a lot based off just a couple clips that you see here and there on social media, but you can take some things away from that. If you look at the majority, even when they're doing team drills, majority of the offense is out of the shotgun, which is a lot of what we were hoping to see because you want to play to Deshaun Watson's strengths. He is known as playing out of the shotgun. That's the majority of what he did at Houston. That's what he did at Clemson. Of course, he could play under center, but you want to go 3 and 4 wide a lot more. You want to play to Deshaun Watson's strengths, and that's what the Browns are going to do this year. And when he talks about the offense looks new, you're already starting to see it. You can see in some pictures, for instance, you'll see, I think it was during OTAs, I saw Jerome Ford next to Deshaun Watson, the shotgun, and then you had Elijah Moore behind Deshaun Watson in a pistol look. So they're already starting to use all these different formations, as they should be. You want to play to your quarterback's strengths. And I think the big thing here too, Dave, that a lot of us aren't really thinking about, Kevin Stefanski is known as a coach in a Kyle Shanahan-based type of scheme that he has. I mean, he used that in Minnesota. That's the majority of what he's been around throughout his career. He's really in an offseason, essentially, maybe even a little more than an offseason, having to change that entire offense philosophy that he's used throughout his career in order to use that to Deshaun Watson's strengths. So there's a lot of that Kevin Stefanski is having to constantly do, like Deshaun talked about, as far as evolving the offense, him and AVP. But again, it's a lot that has to be changed this offseason. But as Deshaun Watson talked about, and as you're starting to see, the Browns are slowly starting to do that. And I think we're going to get a lot better look, especially when we get into training camp and we can start to attend those sessions. You're going to see a lot different Browns offense, which is exactly what we needed to see as a fan base. And what you have to hope you don't see is that, let's say things get a little tough at some points in the season, that Kevin Stefanski doesn't go back to that zone-based running scheme that he was consistently running. They go back to the old offense. You want to hope you continue to see the offense evolve as we move more and more into the offseason, and you just want to continue to see Deshaun Watson get more and more comfortable in that scheme that Kevin Stefanski is implementing.
All right, so you put out a Twitter poll, and I found this one interesting. Do you want the Browns to sign DeAndre Hopkins and potentially lose Donovan Peoples-Jones in 2023 and Amari Cooper in 2024, or keep the wide receiver room as it is? A narrow lead as we speak for DeAndre Hopkins, 52, almost 53% to 47%. So pretty even split. I get it either way. My thought is if Donovan Peoples-Jones goes out and plays like he did last year, he probably is going to price himself out of the Browns' price range. And again, it's not that he did anything wrong. It's not that he's not a good player. It's that he's outperforming what the Browns probably will be looking to pay him.
Yeah, the point of this poll, I really wanted to see because a lot of fans want to sign DeAndre Hopkins, but I feel like some of them aren't understanding that when you do that, you're taking reps away from somebody. And in this case, I love Donovan Peoples-Jones. I really do. I wish they could extend him. When you have a 6th-round pick that performs as well as he does and is still on the roster going into his 4th season, which doesn't happen in a lot of cases, you would love to keep him around. But if you bring in DeAndre Hopkins, he and Amari Cooper are essentially your 1A, 1B receivers. They're going to be the ones that are playing on the outside. You have Elijah Moore as your slot receiver. That's immediately going to push Donovan Peoples-Jones to your 4th wide receiver. And the reason that they would do that is because Donovan Peoples-Jones can play in the slot, but you just traded and gave up significant assets to bring in Elijah Moore to play that role. And you've already seen how much they're using and utilizing Elijah Moore in this offense. So what I would do personally, if you bring in Hopkins, I think you do right by Donovan Peoples-Jones and try and trade him to a team that could use a wide receiver and give him the opportunity to go out and earn a big contract, because I would love to see him get a good payday. Because anytime, again, a guy that you've drafted as a sixth round player is able to continue to perform and get better each and every year, you would love to be able to extend them. But as we're seeing, the Browns are going to be uptight against the cap in 2024. Right now, they are way over the cap. And, of course, they're going to restructure contracts. They're going to release players. They're going to get to where they need to be. But they're going to have to make some decisions. Donovan Peoples-Jones is very likely, like you said, going to price himself out of Cleveland. Amari Cooper, his contract, is $20 million against the cap. The Browns can move on from that. But if you bring in Hopkins, let's say Hopkins wants a 2-year deal because he very well might want a 2-year contract, and you price that at about $10 million per year, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, do right by the player, give him that opportunity, and then it comes down to, then are you okay moving on from Amari Cooper to essentially bring in DeAndre Hopkins, even though Cooper is younger and actually outproduced DeAndre Hopkins the last 2 seasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But, again, fun poll, and I'm glad a lot of people interacted with that one.
Tyler Johnson and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we will continue to hear from some more Browns players. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dawgs Podcast Network 216. Dalvin Tomlinson on what he has noticed about Jim Schwartz's defense.
I feel like with the systems I've been in, some of them been attack fronts, but it's just a different type of attack defense. And I feel like this one is just the most aggressive as they get. And just as a defensive lineman, to be able to use all your power and explosiveness every single play is like a dream come true.
What's kind of his one overarching message to the D lineman, how he wants you guys to play?
Just play fast. We'll rotate if you get tired, but every play give it 100%, no matter what, and just make sure we're running. We get to the ball, and cardio is going to be a big thing for everybody.
Tyler, the one thing that I have said about the Browns defense the past 2 years, they didn't really have an identity. I'm pretty sure they're going to have an identity this year, and it's not saying that they're not going to make mistakes, but they're going to be mistakes of aggression, which are okay.
Yeah, I want to see mistakes of aggression. I really do. It shows the defense is getting after the quarterback. It's causing havoc to the opposing offense. Because again, you're always going to make mistakes on defense. The Browns aren't going to be perfect under Jim Schwartz. That's just the reality. But can Jim Schwartz get this defense from a bottom defense to a top 10 to top 5 defense? I really think he can, because he's got the talent. But kind of like Dalvin Tomlinson talked about, this defense is going to be aggressive. And I think that's really what you want to see. And Jim Schwartz even talked about the possibility of times playing 5 down linemen. And you can't do that unless you have a very good secondary to be able to do that. But also it shows he really likes the defensive ends that he has and the defensive linemen he has. So I think that's really encouraging to hear from the players, because, again, if you're being aggressive and you're making mistakes being aggressive, that's one thing. It's a lot better than giving up a big play because a guy beat you for 20 yards because there was a breakdown in coverage. That's not aggressive. That's just not knowing your assignment whatsoever. So that would be great to be able to have this defense aggressive. Maybe they miss a tackle, they miss a sack, and the quarterback throws a 30-yard pass. Okay, at least we almost got to the quarterback. I just want to see this defense continue to generate pressure consistently. And I think under Jim Schwartz and the talent they've added up front, that's something we're going to see a lot of this year.
All right, so a guy that knows what the defense is supposed to look like at an elite level is Rodney McLeod. McLeod was asked, did he see similarities between the defense that he played on with the Eagles for Jim Schwartz that won a Super Bowl and the defense he came to with the Browns?
From the cornerback room, I think what helped us win in Philly was we had great cornerback play, and that's obvious here with Denzel Ward, Greg, and also Emerson in the back end. And then you add Delpit and Juan Thorhill, reminds me a lot of my times with myself and Malcolm. So I think the pieces are there. It's just now about execution.
Ronnie, how common is it to have a defensive coordinator that likes to coach right at the line of scrimmage like that? I mean, have you had other defensive coordinators do that throughout your career?
Yeah, I think, it's one in the trenches, man, up front. It's big, and Jim stresses that. We're going to lean on the defensive line. We're going to allow them to attack. They're going to set the tempo for the team, and I think we got the right guys up front to do so. So I'm very excited because that makes our job a lot easier in the back end. They're applying pressure, and we take advantage of it.
And again, they have the secondary and the defensive front to do it. Again, you have to go out and do it on the field, but you at least understand how they're trying to build the defense.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of players react kind of like Rodney McLeod there. Like, we know how this defense, it looks like, is really going to shape up this year. We know that we have the talent on the defense. You have to go out, though, and actually prove that. And I think they're going to end up doing that this year. I really do. I can't state enough how big of an addition Rodney McLeod is. And it's not because he's a top 10 safety in the league. It's because he has previous experience playing under Jim Schwartz, knows what it takes to win a Super Bowl, knows what's required in order to make that happen. You need guys like that on your team. Think of some of the players that have been added. You've added Juan Thornhill, who is a Super Bowl champion. He knows exactly what it takes in order to win. You've added Rodney McLeod, a Super Bowl champion, but you've also gone out and you've added Zadarius Smith. He's been on multiple playoff teams. You've also added Dalvin Tomlinson, who's been on playoff teams. You've added playoff experience to your roster, and I think that's very important on the defensive side of the ball. When really just for the last couple of years, it was Myles Garrett. I mean, yeah, you had Clowney, who had some playoff experience too. But outside of that, a lot of these guys were very untested. It was a young defense. You're getting some veterans on that side of the ball now, Dave, and I really think the Browns have been missing that, and that's going to be a huge component this season. It might not be the guys that are constantly making all the plays necessarily. Like, I don't think Rodney McLeod's going to have like 80 tackles or anything along those lines, but he's just going to be a voice. He's going to be a voice of reason, a voice of experience, and a voice of leadership. And I think you really need that on the defensive side of the ball, especially when you are under a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, the other thing the depth does is guys are going to get banged up and miss games, multiple games. So now you have guys that you're comfortable with filling in. The back end of that roster has been upgraded pretty significantly, in my opinion. Tyler Johnson, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tyler.
My pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out. Faithful Dawgs podcast as well as Network 216. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will hear more from Deshaun Watson, Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead, stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. The Browns going through mandatory minicamp, a day or so left of that, and then they'll head down to Greenbrier in West Virginia for training camp in a little over a month. Deshaun Watson talked today about what wide receiver Marquise Goodwin does for this offense. Also, just how much more comfortable Watson is getting in this offense.
It can be scary. Because the secondary and the defense have to watch out for them. So you have to make sure you get your depth if you're playing defense and keep your eyes on whatever you got, whatever that defense is trying to do. So it kind of opens up other guys underneath, because if that guy runs by and if we can hit those deep shots, that can open up the run game and also the intermediate and short game in the passing game.
Just to go back to Tom's question about like you feeling more comfortable or whatever, I mean, at that one throw to him in OTAs, that long throw, you did your bow and arrow celebration. I know people were pointing that out on social media. Something like that, just like a sign of you're getting back into it, feeling more comfortable with what you're doing out there?
Definitely. I'm getting comfortable with the position I'm in, getting comfortable being here in Cleveland and in this organization, and just, my personality over time is going to continue to show, and people are going to get to know me like I mentioned last year. But, all that time is patience. And, over the days as we continue to work and stack and keep improving, more and more of that stuff will come out.
Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And Lance, you're a former coach and an offensive coach. I know you shouldn't read too much into it when there aren't pads on, but he looks very comfortable, and there's a familiarity that you can tell didn't exist really last year.
Well, yeah, you can hear it in his voice. It's the first time I heard that sound voice, so you can hear it in his voice that he's very comfortable. I like what he said about Goodwin being able to take the top off the defense. So a lot of times people always ask me, what does that actually mean? Well, he said it perfectly. It's going to make those safeties, whether they're in two hi-hats or one hi-hats, he's going to make those guys respect that deep ball. So when Goodwin's out there, for example, he's going to stress those guys, making sure they're getting their depth. Now you're opening things underneath for Elijah Moore, DPJ, Cooper, all those guys, on the Njoku, the run game, like he said, because you're going to have to stay deep. So he adds an element in terms of, even though DPJ, I think, is a very good long threat, he's not a true speed guy where initially pre-snap, you have to say to yourself, I got to get out of there. And that's what Goodwin gives you. You're talking about a 9-year vet, but you're talking about a 4.2 guy. He's an elite speed guy. So And when you listen to Watson, he says all the right things in terms of he processes information so well, and you see it on film. And he sounds really confident. It's his show now. There's no waiting for him to go. It's time to go, and I think you're going to see a big jump here early because of all the work they're getting in now.
So I wanted to show you this too. So the Browns could have a secret weapon in the backfield this season. This is from Dog Pound Daily. And that's Elijah Moore running out of the backfield. He throws it to Donovan Peoples-Jones. But again, you're lining up Elijah Moore in the backfield, motioning him out or having him run routes. And it's opening some other things up. When you put a guy like Elijah Moore in the backfield, what does that do for the offense, Lance?
Well, I'm huge. I think Kevin Stefanski does a great job with play design. So what he's doing there is that he's making, so if he's in the backfield, he's now 3 strong. So if you're a 2x2 with 2 receivers each side and Elijah Moore's in the backfield, he's now 3 strong or 3 weak, depending on where he releases. It puts tremendous, so he ran a little Texas route there, a classic route by a running back. Now it's with a receiver. So now you have a skilled guy who's going to be matched up on a linebacker. Whether that linebacker's in zone or man, it's going to be his responsibility. So putting him at 3 strong, I've seen some clips of him with being in motion. He's another guy. He's a short area guy. He's a jet bubble, quick screen guy. He's a touch guy. So what I like already with the Browns are doing with him, he's not a guy who's necessarily the receiver in terms of route running. He can run all the routes, but he's a guy who needs touches. And now you got Goodwin who takes the top off. You got Cooper. You got all the guys we know about. Now Elijah Moore is going to add a guy who's a touch guy. And when you get those guys, they're really hard to defend. I always like designing plays for those guys because you can just kind of put them anywhere and find the matchup you want. And the Browns are now getting that depth at receiver where he's going to get a matchup inside against a linebacker that's going to be very tough for a defense to stop.
And that's kind of what my thought was. Is boy, you put him in the backfield and you allowed Deshaun Watson to see he is matched up on this guy. I like that matchup. Let's take it. Those are the easy yards you and I have talked about a lot.
Yeah, so you talk about easy yards, so Goodwin and Moore. So now, not only do you have these design stuff, but they're going to be fantastic on these off-script plays. These, what I think is Deshaun Watson. He does everything really, really well, and people have kind of forgotten that in football terms. He is an elite quarterback. If he gets back to what he was in 2020, you're talking about a top 5 quarterback. Now, one of his ultimate strength is improvising when things break down. So he's great when everything's perfect, but he's also really good when things break down. And Elijah Moore, Goodwin, these guys are really good at improvising. They're athletes in space. And just guys who are going to, I think about all these guys, and it's, people are worried about the run game. It's going to open it up for Nick Chubb. There's a lot on paper. Unfortunately, football's not played on paper. What the Browns have done with their pickups in the offseason in the draft, they address these issues in making this a complete offense, both horizontally and vertically. They're going to be very tough to stop.
All right, Deshaun Watson talked about leading this offense and this team, as well as how the offense continues to evolve.
Yeah, we have those conversations every day. Every time we get in the meeting room, they're asking questions, I'm asking questions. I'm giving, suggestions or making statements. They're doing the same thing. So it's an open room once we get in that room. And that's how, we're going to continue to grow and be able to have success because no one's in that room. AVP or Kevin, who's calling the plays, AVP, who's, dealing up the scripts and all that. No one is stubborn. No one is insecure with this is the way we need to do it. Everyone's open to, all right, whatever works is going to work for us. And if we like it, then we're going to run it.
How much more excited are you about it, knowing that it's all really now tailored all to you and it should showcase your strengths?
I'm very excited. It's just a lot more responsibility for myself, but I like the weight on my shoulders and for me to be able to go out there and, show what I got and help me lead this team to a lot of victories. That's where I want to get to. So we have a lot of work to put in this next break. And once we come back on the 19th, we got to be ready, locked and loaded and show what we got.
And Lance, that was one of the I was most excited to hear him talk about that because it truly sounds like Kevin Stefanski is designing the offense around Deshaun Watson's skill set. And that, I think, is the key to this offense being elite.
Yeah, it's funny as an offensive coordinator. So Kevin knows what he knows. These NFL guys are so good, and Kevin Stefanski is one of the best at play design. So he knows what he knows. He knows wide zone. He knows gap schemes. He knows his layered routes. He knows he's got a very complex offense. Great players make play design pretty easy. So he's able to take what he does and he's gonna adjust it. So some of the base run plays you get with Nick Chubb, there's still gonna be base run plays, but now you're gonna get a run pass option off it. So the offensive line's gonna do the same thing. He's gonna do the same thing, but now they can adjust to what he does really well, which is being in the gun. And what he gives you, like I said, he is a toy that the Browns have not had in terms of run and pass. They've surrounded him with a bunch of talent now. So again, not only does he have talent, but the one thing that Deshaun never gets credit for, in my opinion, is his ability to process information. He can read the entire field. He's not a half field guy. He's not reading a one side. He understands what the entire field's doing. He puts in a ton of work in the film room. You can just see by watching him. So I think with this offseason and everything he's going to be able to do, and when they say that they're open conversations, he's telling him, this doesn't work for me. I don't see it. Kevin's saying, well, that's what I've done before. What can we do different? So if they're on the same page and they truly are open in open conversations, it could be pretty scary what they could do offensively.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially his ability to process information is elite. It is among the best. I think it's one of the things that made him so good in Texas. And if you think about it, the fact that he was in a new system, new teammates, the whole delayed start to the season, I think that's the reason he wasn't processing it as quickly a season ago. But I'm with you. When he is on, he is as good as there is at reading stuff in a hurry. The other thing, Kevin Stefanski talked about how the whole offense has to get used to Deshaun Watson a little bit.
Yeah, that's something we've talked about. I mean, it was something certainly we saw last season. Deshaun has the ability to extend plays, and when those times come up, it's really incumbent on all 10 other guys out there to stay alive, and that may be the receivers getting open. That's got to be the offensive line when they're blocking. The play's never over until that whistle blows, and Deshaun does have that unique ability that he's shown his whole life to extend plays.
And again, that's elite. Not many have the ability to do that, and it does take time for the other 10 guys on the field to realize that.
I think Kevin brought up a good point. So not only usually the ball's thrown away. So a lot of NFL quarterback plays not there, balls away. With Deshaun Watson, now you're getting these extended plays. So not only do the receivers have to go through their scramble drill, which I saw them doing last year, and that just takes time, knowing where people go on their scramble drill. There's general rules. Short, you go long. Long, you go short. If you're in the middle, you go across. We all have our general rules, and it's pretty much across the board. But basically, it's like it turns into a basketball game where you're kind of finding opening areas, and you kind of get a feel for who's going to go where and what they're going to do, and each receiver is different. But the key that Kevin said there is the offensive line. Now the offensive line has to stay with a little bit. They kind of figure out where he's going to go on certain plays, what he likes to do, where he likes to scramble, and that's just repetition. Those guys will get that. But they have to now stay engaged for longer. They can't just make their block, for example, because he steps up in the pocket. A lot of times you'll see a tackle just kind of push that guy by and kind of let it go. Can't do that anymore with Deshaun Watson. Now you got to stay with, you got to continue with your blocks, knowing that the play could go, that 6, 7, 8 second length, which is they're not used to. So, yeah, it takes a little time. That's just all practice, and they're going to get that through the summer.
Yep. And, again, those are some of the things that they tried to switch, in a week, if you will, when Watson came back last year, that, there was some rust with that. Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll hear more from a couple of Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Dalvin Tomlinson, Browns defensive tackle, on what makes Jim Schwartz's defense stand out.
I don't think I ever found a defense, been a part of a defense this simplified, and especially in the NFL. It's multiple defenses. It'd be a 3-4 or 4-3, but it's multiple defense. It depends on who you're going to play. And this one's straightforward, just like line up and go play some football.
Another new defensive tackle here, Mo Hurst. I mean, this guy who's dealt with injuries throughout his career, but seems like he's out here every day going as hard as he can. Just what's it been like getting to know him and seeing how he works out here?
Oh, yeah. Mo's a great guy and super great technician also. And he's one of the guys who's played in the system before, so he brings a lot to the table for us. Just guys who haven't played in it, he always have things we can use to get a little edge and technique and stuff like that. So he's been one of our biggest technicians in this process so far. And Mo is a big part of our D-line so far.
And Lance, when Jim Schwartz was hired, he said, a high school coach will be able to understand the defense that we're playing. And we continue to hear that, and we continue to hear players that really can't wait to get out and play in this system.
Well, if you remember a long time when we talked when Schwartz was hired, so this is months and months and months ago, and everybody talked about the wide nine. Well, it's not a complex defense at all. You're going to get a 3, you're going to get a 2-eye, you're going to get wide 5s, depending if there's a tight end, maybe get wide 9s. They're going to get upfield. They're going to take those gaps. Those linebackers are going to clean everything up. Those linebackers play forward. So they're not reading a ton of stuff. They're just playing forward and they're being aggressive. And what Thompson said there in terms of lining up, they're working on fundamentals. They're working on their hand placement. They're working on getting into the offensive line in front of them. The linebackers are going to run downhill with the anticipation that the defensive line is going to do their job. You're going to get lots of man coverage outside. You're going to get a strong safety down in the box making tackles. You're going to get a free safety over top who's going to play sideline to sideline. And you're not going to get a lot of variation from it. So when he says a high school coach will know it, you're going to get a good high school coach will know it because it's really good defense. And the reason he's had success is because without question, and it's never going to change, you win with people. And the Browns have some pretty good players at all 3 levels. And the way you have those guys play well is to play fast. And you play fast by knowing your responsibility. And the minute you think, your feet stop. And that's my dad's always rule, and that's always I've lived by as a coach, is that I don't want my kids thinking, I want them playing. And so regardless if they're high school, college, or pro, if you're thinking, you're not moving. And that's what Schwartz it teaches. If those guys are going to get lined up, there's going to be no mistake where they're lined up, and they're going to play forward, and they're going to play fast. And you're going to see a lot of tackles for loss. You're going to see a lot of aggression. It's going to be kind of fun to watch.
All right. One of the guys that knows what this is supposed to look like, Rodney McLeod, played with Jim Schwartz when they won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. McLeod talked about building a culture and what they need to do to build a winning culture.
From the players, leaders on the team. And like I said, the best teams that I've been around, the most successful teams, you can see that the players really hold the team values close to their heart. They hold everybody accountable. They set the standard each and every day, and they lead by example.
So with you, Amon, and Grant, a lot of times you guys will probably use 3 safeties. What does that do for this defense? You guys, that could be a pretty good set, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think we're all playmakers in our own way, and then Jim's going to find the best way to utilize all of us in our strengths, and that's what I'm most excited about. So it's a real good room, from the corners to the safeties, linebackers, and of course the D-line. So I think we're going to make a lot of plays this year. Right now it's just about building the chemistry, understanding the defense, and then letting it all hang out when it's time to go out there and play.
And you can tell all of the guys that have played for Jim Schwartz say the same thing. They just want to go out and play fast and play hard.
Yeah, I think he made a great point there. So again, there's the correlation between obviously the skill level at all levels. The higher you get, the more skilled are. But I will tell you, the correlation between an NFL and a high school team is that your best teams are run by your players. So going, when I was coaching, whoever's been a coach, whatever sport it is, when you have a really good team, you are not the leader as the coach. You are the guy in charge of getting everything organized, but your leaders are in charge. And when your leaders are in charge and your leaders are the hardest workers, you got a chance to be pretty good. And that's kind of what he's saying in terms of like Schwartz. Schwartz is not going to make it about him. He's going to allow these guys to get lined up and play. And it's on them to police each other. You're going to know who messes up. You're going to know who makes mistakes. They're going to take ownership of those things. There's not a lot of, we were in zone, we were in man. They're going to be in man coverage. They're going to be blitzing. They're going to be doing certain things. But it's going to be very simple and very fast.
Lance Reisland, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Really good film breakdown, interesting stuff, The Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.